and welcome to another video. So this is going to be all of my pickups for the first half of March. There's quite a bit more than I really expected this month, manga-wise. I don't have much anime or anything else, but manga, there's quite a sizable stack, so I'll try to go through this like within a decent amount of time. Hopefully it doesn't run too long. But yes, I this month has been the first month that I've really had more spending money, after having paid off some very large bills in relation to my car and things like that. I finally had some extra money. I know that I did say I'm also saving for a trip, which I still am, but the balance between saving for that compared to like paying off car stuff is quite a lot larger than it was in previous months. That being said, I didn't go crazy or anything. It's still fairly typical for me, the amount of stuff that I have. But rather than spending too long on this intro, I'll just get straight into it. I'm going to start with anime because I only have one anime for this pickup, and that is the Anime Limited Collector's Edition release of Gurren Lagann. So this company, which is a UK company, if you have watched my videos before, they already released this series in an Ultimate Edition a couple years ago. It was their very first Ultimate Edition, and it had a couple growing pains, but the series itself is very, very good. It's sort of Gurren Lagann is pretty. It's the epitome of sort of self-indulgent, male fantasy, over the top series. But that's not to say it's not a good show. It's a lot of fun. I don't think it's a brilliant masterpiece, but it's definitely something you can just pop on and enjoy yourself with. This particular release contains both the television show and the films, the two films, as well as an art book with just some typical art from the series. And I got this particular release just because I liked the release more. They do also have standard versions of basically these are the standard releases, but it's been re-released in this collector's edition. I believe this was limited to 500 units, so only 500 made in the world, or within the UK, I guess. And it was a Zavvi exclusive, which is an online UK store. If you're not familiar, I don't find them perfect, but there are some things that I do buy from Zavvi, especially when they have sales and stuff like that going on. As for this particular release, I bought it because I really enjoy the show, but it's a lot cheaper than the Aniplex Aniplex USA release of this series, and I don't believe Australia has this show on Blu-ray, or well, actually that's a lie. We got our own Ultimate Edition, but like I said, I really just prefer this sort of collector's edition release, where it's sort of standard sizing and can fit on the shelf while still looking quite nice. If you're familiar with this particular show in the UK, there is a couple issues with a couple seconds of picture quality on one of the episodes, and I think there's maybe a sound mixing issue for a couple seconds on another episode. I don't quite remember what the second issue was, but for what comes up to about 13-15 seconds of viewing within the entirety of a 27 episode series, I'm willing to overlook that for the hugely reduced price. I believe this came to something like $45 Australian dollars after shipping, which, you know, hugely cheaper compared to like Aniplex's release, where it's 50 odd US dollars per single, which there are 5 of, so that's $250 relatively. So yes, Gurren Lagann is a very fun show. It's not probably a series for everyone. It is definitely a very it definitely embraces the sort of show that it is. It's very over the top and crazy and just outrageous, but that's what makes it fun. It's not meant to be this hugely series that ruminates on the meaning of humanity and you know, our place amongst the universe and all that sort of thing that a lot of these more sci-fi mecha series do. So if you want fun, Gurren Lagann is definitely one to try, although depending on where you live, it may be a little more or quite more expensive to actually watch it, or at least on Blu-ray. Next are some light novels that I got this month. The first being Bakemonogatari Part 2 by Nisio Oisin. So Nisio Oisin, I've spoken about before, probably the most well-known and popular light novel author, both in Japan and outside of Japan. He's certainly a very talented writer. I've said it before. He's very you either love him or hate him. I'm fairly in the positive middle. I don't adore everything that he writes, but I do recognize he's very talented. He's a great at developing plot, and he's certainly very well known for his dialogue, if nothing else. Although I find personally that him knowing that people think his dialogue is clever just motivates him to make it more clever, quote unquote. For this particular book, like with the previous Bakemonogatari book, it's focusing on 2 of the girls from the Bakemonogatari story arc thing. This being Kanburo and Nadako, or the monkey and the snake. The third and final book, I believe, is just Hanakawa. I'm not 100% sure, but from my knowledge of Bakemonogatari, then I would assume it's Hanakawa, or maybe Hanakawa and Shinobu. I don't know how that'll work out. This actual novel is quite a bit thicker than the last Bakemonogatari book. So that's interesting. And I said last time that these books were actually released, or Bakemonogatari was released in 2 books rather than 3, but I find that probably this worked out better for Vertical, not only with profitability, but just how they broke up the stories and how they supported each other. I don't know. Yeah, the covers for these are beautiful. They're very different from the Japanese release, but I think Co-Ransom does a really good job, and I look forward to the other books in the series, although it's sort of daunting considering that there is probably over 20 books within the Monogatari franchise already. And it never seems to want to end. It's just it's profitable, and it continues to gain interest and popularity. So it's one of those things that is definitely being milked, but I don't think it's quite fallen off of like being overdone yet. the one thing about you have to give to Nisio Isin, regardless of your personal opinions on him, is that he definitely can make a pretty intriguing story out of seemingly nothing. There's some very, very interesting stuff in the Monogatari franchise as a whole, which is why I'm a fan of it. But yes, I haven't actually read this one yet, but I plan to within the next, I don't know, month or so. We'll see. The second light novel is also a Nisio Isin work, but not Monogatari related, and that is Vertical's newest re-release, I would say, of Decapitation Kubikiri Cycle. So this series previously got the first 2 volumes released in English by another company. I cannot remember quite who it is at this moment. But under the name Zaragoto Kubikiri Cycle, as you can see, Vertical has sort of given a more a better translation of the title with this Decapitation Kubikiri Cycle, the Blue Savant and the Nonsense User. And this series, I've only read part of it so far. It's very different from what you may be more familiar with Nisio Isin. It's sort of more along his Death Note light novel, which is also available in English. In it being, it's a murder mystery in a closed island locked room situation, which is very, very popular if you are have any awareness of mystery tropes. And it's a trope you see a lot in Japanese media. Things like The Perfect Insider and Umineko use this within their own story. But it's the story of a young woman who has been isolated from the main family. She lives on an island somewhere off, one of the multitudes of islands off of the coast of Japan. And she invites various geniuses to visit her, and so the main character is actually the handler or the personal assistant to one of these geniuses, and whilst they're there, I haven't actually gotten to this part in the book yet, someone is killed, decapitated, as from the title of this book, and they have to figure out who it is, because obviously in this closed island situation, the killer is amongst us. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this. I've always been a mystery fan, so I wonder how much... I wonder with Nisio Isin the sort of approach he takes to mystery, because there's the sort of Sherlock Holmes in which he makes all these magical deductions and just explains it all to the audience at the end, or more so like Christie's Poirot or Miss Marple, where the clues are there for the audience to interpret and sort of figure out whilst you're going along. And so it gives you a chance to actually see if you can have the deductive capabilities of the mystery solvers within the novels. But like I said, I haven't gotten that far yet. I do hope to, in the next month or so. But with uni, I just don't have that much time to dedicate to light novels at the moment. But here's hoping I'll be able to finish it sometime soon. Now, let's get to the manga. That took entirely too long. But I'm going to start with 2 volumes from the same series that I picked up. And this is actually one of the series I nominated for my manga completion challenge. If you haven't watched that video, I'll link it down in the description below. It's basically trying to finish certain series within this year of 2017. And so, yes, these are the first two that I got, and that is Ottoman Volume 2 and 3. So this series is done by Ayakano. It's very different from Requiem of the Rose King, but it's still, interestingly enough, tackles gender expectations, which is a big thing in Requiem of the Rose King. This particular story is more what you would expect from a high school romance shoujo series, but it's about a teenage boy who's like the epitome of shoujo hero-ness. Basically, he's tall and cool and, you know, very stoic and just, you know, the perfect man, the perfect boyfriend. And then a girl discovers that he's actually, despite his demeanor and everyone thinking he's like a real man's man, he absolutely adores doing girly things. He likes sewing and needlework and cooking or baking more specifically, and he just adores cute things. But he strives to be more masculine because his mother has trauma after his father left them to become a woman. So she's like, you can't end up like your father. You have to become like the perfect man. And this girl that sort of discovers this about him, she's very cute. She looks like the perfect shoujo heroine. But in actuality, her father runs a dojo and she's incredibly strong, sort of very blunt and brute force and that sort of thing. So they're a mismatched pair that know each other's secrets, basically. Sort of like Horimiya, but not quite. And then there's the friend who, similarly to Nozaki-kun, is a shoujo manga author, although nobody knows that. None of the other characters are aware. And he uses these two in his manga as like the models or the individuals he's based his characters off of. It's a fun read, quite funny, definitely not like groundbreaking, but it's certainly enjoyable. I've enjoyed everything that I've read from it so far, and all the characters are quite earnest. It's a good time if you just want to sit down and read something. As you can see, I've only read the first 3. There is 18 volumes in this series, so I don't know how it will develop past here, but I have quite a bit of faith in Kana. I think she does very good work, and I've heard good things about Ottoman, even if it's not fabulous. Next is one of my all-time favorite series, and one that just is regardless of when it's coming out, how much money I have, things like that, I will always buy. And that is Natsume's Book of Friends, Volume 20. Now, I've done a manga recommendations video on this series before, and happily, people have seemed to try this series more recently. The 6th season is coming out next month of the anime, but this volume, the author herself even says in the ending notes that it's interesting to see how much Natsume as a character has changed over the series from Volume 1 till Volume 20. He's much more proactive and gets involved and does things. His actions have changed a lot with how he interacts with both people and yokai. And I think that's one of the biggest parts of this series. It's definitely one of the more important aspects to the series. If you're not aware of Natsume's Book of Friends, or you've never heard of it, it's the story of a teenage boy, Takashi Natsume, who can see yokai or Japanese spirits, which is an ability he inherited from his grandmother who died years before his birth. He was orphaned very young in his life, and he's been sort of bounced between different relatives his entire life. He's never stayed in one spot too long because the stress and his reactions to being able to see things other people don't. The people who look after him have never really understood him. So he's honestly led a very sad life up until this point, where now this series takes place. He's living in the country with some distant relatives of his father, and part of the stuff he inherited from his grandmother is this item called the Book of Friends, and he finds out it's all these names of different yokai from this area, because where he's living now is where his grandmother used to live. So he's reconnecting with the yokai that once knew his grandmother, learning more about the people who can see and interact with yokai, as well as actually for the first time in his life having like a human connection with people who care about him and want to support him in growing up and making friends at school and that sort of thing. It's a phenomenal series. It's one of Japan's most popular over in the entire like genre demographic. I mean, 6 seasons of anime should clue you in that it's a fairly popular series. Yeah, it's phenomenal. I love Natsume's Book of Friends. This particular book has 4 different stories. Every chapter is episodic, so it's the sort of series you can go pretty much straight into without needing any real backstory. I mean, I would recommend you read it in order, but each chapter is usually each chapter or each 2 chapters are self-contained. Yeah, the first story in this volume in which Natsume is de-aged is probably one of the most poignant ones in the series, at least recently. Natsume is great. I highly recommend it, and I absolutely adore it. Yeah, I really can't say any more than that, but beautiful series, and one that I never seem to see many people talk about, but thankfully, should I say, Viz has kept publishing it. We are up to volume 20 now, and really no end in sight. It's the sort of series that you can keep going for a very long time and not run out of steam, I think. But yes. Next is another more typical shoujo series, but one that I'm sure is quite popular, and that is Kimi ni Todoke, volume 26. So this, of course, is the most recent volume. Again, this volume focuses a lot on these 2 characters on the front, Saoko and Kirimi. I think that's her name. And the whole cast's focuses for after graduation. We have a refreshing and quite realistic argument between Saoko and Kazuhaya, and so like the impact of that and then the making up, which is always a good indication. It's nice to have a shoujo couple that acts like a realistic couple in that, yes, things aren't always going to be perfect. You're gonna argue, you're gonna, things are gonna happen, but you care about each other, so you apologize and forgive and continue on with that sort of thing. The rest of it does focus on these 2 where they're studying and they're aiming towards a education school, like teaching school, and trying to work together and really sort of air out some things that happened in the past and work through them. Again, it's quite emotionally charged with these particular two characters. It's very, very good. If you've been reading this series up until now, this is definitely definitely a almost hard-hitting volume. And the final chapter does focus on Ayane and Pin, which I don't think will develop into anything, but it's refreshing having it addressed in a realistic manner. But that's just me, in my opinion. Kimi no Todoke is very good, but it moves like molasses. But in saying that, definitely, if you're a fan of shoujo, I do recommend this one. Or I say, if you're a fan of high school romance and very likable characters and quite realistic interactions, Kimi no Todoke, From Me to You, is one of the better ones. It's a bit long now, but it's nice to have characters that actually act like people. They're not perfect, you know, the main romantic interest, Kazuhaya, and the other boys as well. They're not, you know, Mr. Perfect, although it sort of seems like it at the beginning. The more you learn about them, the more human they become. But yes, Kimi no Todoke, volume 26. This is actually a really skinny volume. I was quite surprised, but I'm not going to complain. Yeah, it's very good. I like it a lot. Next is actually the final shoujo manga that I got for this month, or this first half of the month. And this is another one that I absolutely adore. And it's volume 38 of Skip Beat. Now, if you're not familiar with Skip Beat, I've talked about this before. It takes so long for these volumes to come out, like once every 6 months. But so it's like quite painful to wait, because this series is just, it's hilarious. It's really fun and heartwarming, sweet, and it's just overall really fun. It's the story of Kyoko, who, after being spurned by her childhood friend, who she moved to Tokyo with a childhood friend who became an idol. He's very popular. He's like #2 on the charts or whatever. And she was totally in love with him. But then she realized that he was just using her, and so she, you know, from her disappointment, she became this incredibly grudge-filled, vengeful individual, and she's trying to prove him wrong, saying that she's like, I am popular, I can do whatever I want, you're, you know, nothing without me, blah blah blah. And so it starts with a romantic thing, but that doesn't last past chapter 1. There is romantic elements in this, but it's not really the focus of it. The series is much more about having to learn how to love yourself before you can love other people. And it's about the idol industry, or the entertainment industry, should I say. Actors, singers, that sort of thing. So yeah, Kyoko has set out on this journey to become the most popular idol, beating out Sho. And and then she meets like who is like #1, Ren, who works, or who is also part of her I can't remember the word, who is under the same label as her, record, I guess. But yeah, it's phenomenal. This particular volume, the latter half, has a very long time coming interaction with Kyoko's mother. You learn a lot more about her and her reasoning for her actions and why she is like she is, which is something that has been sort of nagging since the very first volumes. This is great. It's actually, with volume 38, and, you know, since before then. This is the longest series I have in my collection, and it's still so funny. It's still really, really good. The artwork is a little bit hard. It's a little bit weird, very pointy chins at the beginning of the series, but nowadays it's not nearly as bad. You can see. I really love the expressions of this series. There's a lot of funny moments, like so. And the grudges, which we haven't seen in quite a while, are just always a good time. But yes, Skip Beat is it's really good. I would recommend it to anyone who's probably not really a shoujo fan, or they don't think they're a shoujo fan. They're not really into high school romance. If you want something that's more than that, and very engaging, very funny, a very likable main character and sort of cast in general. There is still romantic elements, but it's not really the focus, especially for the majority of the series. I would definitely recommend Skip Beat. It's, I think, Viz's Shoujo Beats line, one of their more most popular series that they have, and for good reason. Yeah, it's great. And I can't wait for 39, although it'll be like another 6 months till we get that, unfortunately. It takes so long, and there's the back. I don't know if I showed that. Now on to, well, it's more Viz stuff, but it's shonen. Another volume I've been waiting for literally years for, and that is Hunter x Hunter volume 33. All Dark Continent stuff in this one, and it's just amazing. I think sometimes with all the hiatuses and the sort of series it is, that it's so dense in actually reading and the world building and everything else in Hunter x Hunter, you forget how good it is in between volumes, or in between watching the show and reading the manga or whatever. Honestly, I've already read everything that's in this volume, but I was still floored by how good it was rereading it. I was reminded why I love this series so much. It's honestly amazing. The artwork is phenomenal. People complain about Tagashi's art all the time, but I think there's definitely a difference between the magazine scan, so what's published in Shonen Jump weekly, compared to what is eventually released in Tankobon. And I mean, it's this hugely stark difference. Yeah, the worst thing about Hunter x Hunter, of course, is the hiatuses. We don't know. I can't remember. But it's quite painful having to wait, especially with, I don't know, Hunter x Hunter, especially early on, when it's world building, it's so intriguing that you want to read more and more and more and more and more. But and that's where Dark Continent is at the moment. It's world building, so I don't know. It's hard having to wait, but I will, because I do really love this series. And as you can tell from, well, it's not always obvious from the cover, but it's a return of Kurapika and Lario, although he was in the previous arc. Much more focus on those two rather than Gon and Killua. If you're familiar with the series, then you know why. But yeah, I want volume 34 really soon, but I don't think we'll get it. Who knows? I just really like the series. Next is the most recent volume of Haikyu, volume 9. This is beginning of season 2 stuff. If you are familiar with the anime, it introduces Yachi, who is one of the new female managers, and has the practice matches with Tokyo, or starts with practice matches with the Tokyo teams, Fukurodanshi and Nekama. Yeah, it's great. I mean, Haikyu, it's fun. You really get through it quickly. I find it's just a good time. I really like it. It's not, incredible in what it's doing, but it's really, really engaging, and I've said it before, it has a really likable cast. I don't think there's any characters in this series, on the Krasno team or otherwise, that I dislike, or truly dislike, I should say. Yeah, it's well written, it's really solid, and just, yeah, fun. I don't know what else you can really ask of this sort of series. It balances the game tension and excitement with the humor of the characters very, very well. And yeah, it's very, very good. Next is a new, all of these are new releases technically, aside from Ottoman. But one I actually just got yesterday in the mail, and that is Kodansha Comics' release of Ichi-F by Kazuto Tatsuta, which is a autobiographical you can see a workers' graphic memoir of the Fukushima nuclear power plant. So after the 2011 tsunami in Fukushima, this author, or mangaka shall I say, was part of the cleanup for get the nuclear facilities in that area, which was I don't know how many of you remember that it was 6 years ago now at this point. But it was very big news. It was all over, news outlets. I personally was in my first year of university. I remember it very, very well. But this is like the realities of being in a disaster zone pretty much immediately after the disaster. And with obviously a nuclear power plant, that's very high risk. So I haven't read this one yet, but I'm very interested to. It's a very, very, very thick book, you can see. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this. I find non-fiction manga just as interesting, or sometimes even more so than like fictional stuff. It's a different experience from some of the other things you may be reading. Next is another Kodansha release, and that is Welcome to the Ballroom Volume 3, a series I have been waxing poetic about and singing praises about since its very first volume. It was, when Kodansha licensed it, it was one of my most highly anticipated series, and this volume I think really captures my reasons as to why. I find that it can be quite difficult for manga to fully translate movement sometimes in action scenes and that sort of thing. Takeuchi really knows how to do that well. She's phenomenal. This volume contains like a competition, and coming from personal experience with ballroom dance, it's honestly wonderful to see. I love everything about it. The emotions are all very nostalgic to me. But you can, even if you're not familiar with dance or ballroom as a sport or a competitive thing, you really still feel the energy of the room. Not only just the characters, but the performance itself. The artwork is fantastic. Definitely some gorgeous shots there. I love, love, love this page. I love the expressions. And it's the thing with dance is it is a very, very, very expressive sport. It makes all the difference. So this volume, wonderful. I know the series was on hiatus for a little bit in Japan. It's got 8 volumes currently. It is now off hiatus. I don't know whether or not a new chapter has been released, but I know the mangaka has come back. And we're getting a anime in summer, or well, the summer season of anime. I look forward to it. It's being done by the team who does Haikyu, so I can only imagine it'll be wonderful. Yes, I'm really, really loving this series. I urge you to try it, especially if you're looking for sort of a different shonen sports series, because that's what it is. It is a shonen sports series, but with a series, or with a sport, I should say, that's not really something that people are all that familiar with, or even really recognizes as a sport. I don't know. I really like it. So, welcome to the ballroom. And did I show the back of that? I don't know. Ugh, there it is. And finally, for the manga, this is an older release, but one that I've wanted to get for a long time. I'm hoping to, over this next year, slowly collect all of Natsume Ono's work, but this is Restaurante Paradiso by Natsume Ono. This is a single volume series. It was released by Viz under their signature line. Yeah, it's very it's very to Ono's taste. Ono sort of reminds me of Fumi Yoshinaga a lot in that they're very self-indulgent. With Yoshinaga, she has a real love for food, and Ono, it's the same. There's a love for food, but also love for older gentlemen, love for glasses, and that is definitely the focus in this particular series, both this volume and the spin-off Gente. But it's the story of a young woman who moves to Rome in search for her mother, who abandoned her 15, 16 years ago, because the mother wanted to get remarried, but her new husband doesn't want a relationship with a woman who has children. So she basically abandoned her daughter in order to have a new life with the love of her life. So her daughter goes to Rome, finds the restaurant that they opened, and it's this little place in Rome that is incredibly popular. All of the employees are older gentlemen, older kind-looking gentlemen, usually with glasses, and it's very popular with a certain demographic of women. They like the aesthetic, and the food's pretty good too. It's sort of a romance series in which the daughter falls for one of the waiters who could be her father. See, the thing is, like with Ono, I'm not as infatuated with older men as she is, but at the same time, it's not really, it's not creepy. It's just that sort of, okay, that's what it is. Everybody has their taste, and that's fine. But Ono definitely can write a very emotionally appealing story. So even if you don't quite connect with the idea of, oh, I want to, I'm attracted to this older man who's like 30 years older than me, you still have this human element in the personalities between all of the characters. Yeah, this one was interesting, and I had been wanting to read it for a long time, and I'm happy that I have it. I do enjoy House of Five Leaves more, but that is a more fulfilled story that is like 8 volumes long compared to this one volume and then the 3 volumes of Gente. But I know this has an anime. I haven't actually seen it yet. But yes, I am a fan of Ono's work, which is why I'm trying to slowly pick it up over the next year or so. I don't know, 18 months, whenever it'll be. But this is a very beautiful release by Viz. It's sort of surprising in how nice it is. Well, maybe not surprising considering it's in the signature line, but yeah. And if you're not familiar, Ono has a very distinct art style. It's sort of simplistic, the googly eye sort of look. But that's not. I mean, that's a obvious like stylistic choice. It's not like, oh, it's just bad art. That's what her character design looks like. And so if you're wanting to get into Ono's work, be aware that that's what her artwork looks like. It's not going to be hyper realistic. It's very noodly and sort of free flowing and very hooded eyes and pointed noses, and it works. It honestly works. I've been enjoying Aka immensely, the anime from this season, which is based off of another one of her manga series, which I'm hoping we get in English someday. Please, I need that series. But until then, Restaurante Paradiso is really good. I hope to watch the show soon. And yeah, I'm looking forward to more of Ono's work that I have yet to buy and read and everything else. But that is everything. Oh, no, it's not. I am a liar. I am a liar because I separated this before because I didn't want to do it first. But this is the only BL work that I got, and it is the third and most recent volume of Twittering Birds Never Fly, Koyonada's ongoing series about Yakuza. Really, no, it's gonna fall again. I think there's 4 volumes out currently in Japan, heading towards 5. This is one of those series that it's more explicit than some BL I could recommend, but I do highly recommend this series. It's not as hard to find as it used to be, considering that June has now actually started reprinting things, which is always a wonderful thing to think about. Koyonada has a hugely positive reputation in Japan and outside of Japan for good reason. I love all of her works. Twittering Birds Never Fly is her longest work. It's her only ongoing work. Usually she does like 1 volume tankobon series. But it's such an intriguing story. It is more than just your relationship between these two, but the relationship side of it is wonderful because it's actually exploring the psychology behind it. If that makes sense. If that sounds appealing, I would definitely recommend this one. Like I said, it's more explicit than some other things I would recommend, but Yonada's work, all of her series that she does, are really the best of the best. I would classify her as one of the best BL artists in the business. Not of all time, but definitely currently working, especially. Yeah, she's great. I cannot wait for more of her series because she writes really hard-hitting stuff, and I think it's something that can appeal to anyone who's willing to give it a shot. Yeah, Twittering Birds Never Fly 3. One I pre-ordered right when it was announced, and that was like, it feels like forever ago. It probably wasn't that long ago, but I've been waiting for this one for a long time. Considering I paid for it like when I pre-ordered, I'm like, no, please just come to me. I need you to read. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful story. Yeah. So now with that, that's the final. That's the last manga or last thing I got this month. I'm just gonna stack this here. Ugh. And then here. God. So that's everything. So more than I expected, but not, you know, not a huge amount. It's not like 60 plus volumes or anything like that, but a decent amount, I would say. I don't know what I'm getting for this next, or the second half. Less manga, I'm certain of. I've got some omnibus things coming from both Viz and Yen Press, which I'm sure will possibly be exciting for people who know what I'm talking about. But aside from that, I have no idea. Let's hope it's something good. So thank you for watching. I see it's gotten incredibly long once again, this video. I apologize, but hopefully you found it interesting. So yes, thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye till then.